I just get very frustrated when there's amazing fights that are on the table that don't get made. You know, like Usyk and Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to see. I know Usyk is small, right? I know he's small for the weight class, but God damn, that dude's good. God damn, he's good. And the pace that he fights at for a heavyweight is insane.
Definitely. I think that goes back to, the business.
Mm-hmm.
The business side, Usyk is, a great fighter and that has accomplished great things in the sport of boxing. And for him to get disrespected, in the negotiations, because I'm pretty sure that's probably what it came down to, it's not right.
Well, he was willing to accept 70-30.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, but he's like, I want this fight. This is a big fight. And he must realize also that 30% of a Tyson Fury fight is probably bigger than anything he's ever had before in his life.
But I still honestly think, he deserved more than that.
I think so too. But I love the fact that he said yes.
Yeah.
And then it still didn't happen.
Right. So, who was behind the reason why it didn't happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's when you start asking those type of questions.
Who do you think was behind it?
I don't know. I can't say. I wasn't,
right.
In the negotiations, but, it should be some type of form where, these fights should be mandatory to happen so you can clean up the sport of boxing. It can only be one champion in one division.
And those are the words of Terence Bud Crawford as he was on the Joe Rogan's podcast. Shout out to Joe Rogan and his podcast. Check it out. I will leave the link below. And in this particular segment, Terence Crawford expressed how Oleksandr Usyk was disrespected during the negotiations between himself and Tyson Fury. And let me counterpunch. I don't think this is really addressed enough. I think this was rather swept under the rug, where the 30% which came about when it was offered wasn't really from Tyson Fury directly. It was from John Fury, which to my understanding is not an actual negotiator on the team of Tyson Fury. Sure, he's the father of Tyson, but other than that, he's not really that guy. But it's funny how that was the chosen percentage first mentioned by John Fury, 30%, because they stated that the unified champion of the world, former undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world, was only worth 30%. And everyone ran with it. And it had you to think, well, what was their original split? Was it actually 30%? Or was that just something that John Fury mentioned and they ran with it the last minute simply because John Fury wanted to throw that out there as a potential offer just to get out of negotiations because it was so ridiculously low? Okay? See, when you hear something like that and you're trying to get out of a negotiation that you're really not feeling and you really don't want, you find tactics and strategies on how you get out of those particular situations. And how you do that, you go and you throw a low ball offer. And what Terence Crawford was saying was, hey, I just think that was totally disrespectful. And it was. And a lot of people didn't talk about that enough. But it didn't really matter simply because Oleksandr Usyk agreed to the damn thing. But just because he agreed to money doesn't mean he should have agreed to the constant disrespect from Team Fury. Because even if Team Fury, like I said in an interview, and I emphasized in that interview, that if Tyson Fury would have lost to Oleksandr Usyk in the rematch, he still would have received 70% of the split, being the loser, being a person without any belt, being a non-lineal champion at that time, being an absolute person that has been defeated for the first time in his career, going against a person that has everything because it was everything on the line. The Ring Magazine, the IBO, the IBF, the WBC, the WBA, everything. And he still wanted 70%. Yes, that is total disrespect. I have to agree with Terence Bud Crawford. And remember something about Terence. That's hitting home because that was the same shit that they played Terence Crawford with last year. If you guys can remember, this fight that we were blessed and so fortunate to see and to witness was supposed to be last year. This is supposed to be the last part or the last quarter of last year. Errol Spence versus Terence Bud Crawford for the undisputed welterweight championships of the world. And it was all about the split. It was all about Errol gets more. It was all about Errol is the man. It was all about Errol is the A-side. And this is what it was about. And it was total disrespect to Terence Crawford. Now, looking at Crawford now, he could see, of course, the light at the end of the tunnel. However, it doesn't really matter anyway, because that negotiations, I don't even feel, had a candle to the disrespect that Usyk had to go through. And it just shows you that they did not want that fight, and they didn't care about how Team Usyk felt. They didn't care about that. They just wanted to get out of that fight because they wanted an easier fight. Okay? So you could say, well, hey, if he just wanted to fight Francis Ngannou, there is a reason why he was disrespecting Oleksandr Usyk the way he was. I think he was always going to do that anyway because he never respected Oleksandr Usyk as a legitimate challenger and champion. But he had enough sense to know that this guy has skill, and he knows that this is a fight that I could lose. And I think that all came about with just using your better judgment when in doubt. But yeah, this was a very good segment on the Joe Rogan's podcast where they had Terence Bud Crawford expressing his dislike to the disrespect of Oleksandr Usyk in the negotiations of Tyson Fury. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace!